this time now, it's 5:53 this morning, and here's what you need to know before you go. Former Olympic canoeist David Hearn was in court Thursday where he pleaded not guilty to the damaging of the D.C. reflecting pool. He was indicted last week and charged with destruction of property with a value of more than $1,000. If convicted, he could get up to 10 years in prison. The judge said due to the court schedule, his trial would be no earlier than February 2027. Hearn's next hearing is scheduled for August 5th. And a federal grand jury has indicted 8 men in an alleged plot to carry out an attack on the White House last month, conspiring to murder the president, the vice president, Elon Musk, and others. All 8 men are charged with conspiracy to provide material support to terrorists and conspiracy to commit murder. They face up to life in prison if convicted. And officers responded to the Canal Park around 4 Thursday afternoon for a reported stabbing and found a 48-year-old man with a minor cut to his ear. Officers arrested 18-year-old Leland Carlson on possible second-degree assault charges. It's not clear if the two know each other and what prompted the assault, but the incident is under investigation. And Isle Royale National Park is temporarily closing a campground due to a wolf sniffing around 3 Mile campgrounds over the past week. The 3 Mile campground is closed through the end of July. Older adults are invited to celebrate aging with the Golden Ticket, an event today from 9 to 3 at the Proctor Fairgrounds with free admission. There will be live music, a classic car show, health and wellness booths, bingo games, food trucks, and more. And blood supply levels at Northland hospitals have reached an unprecedented low, with Memorial Blood Centers now declaring a blood emergency. The blood supply is down to less than 2 days right now, and the supply of type O, often the first used in emergency care, is down to less than a day's supply. All eligible blood donors are asked to donate as soon as possible. You can donate weekdays during regular business hours, and walk-ins are welcome.